So we find as follows in last week's Parsha and next week's Parsha. It's a description of the birth and then afterwards the early years of the life of Ishmael. And if we look at these parshas more closely, there's something specific here in that the forefathers' names, Avraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, were given by the parents. Avraham's name was changed, Sarah's name was changed, and Yaakov's name was changed by Hashem from Yaakov to a new name, Yisrael. You find it in the later parshas. But who was given a name by Hashem before he was born, and Hashem gave the name? Who was it?
Ishmael.
Ishmael. Because when Hagar was pregnant, and then she began to think that I'm the mistress of the house, and we already discussed, she thought I'm now the main wife, because I've born this child. Though it was Sarah herself who suggested this first instant described here, Ulai Banei Mimeno, of surrogate motherhood, which was customary in those times. That if a woman was barren, sometimes the barren wife would say to her husband, take another maidservant who is trustworthy, a good person, but the baby will be cultivated by his main wife. So it is a type of shared motherhood. But still, the name of the baby would follow, as well as the education of the baby, would follow the main wife. Ulai bani mimena. And when Sarah thought, well, I'm not going to be able to have a child, and my husband Avraham, he needs a child, especially as we've been given these prophecies that he's going to have a child that will change the world, and through that child there'll be a great people. So perhaps I'll do it this way. Ulai bani mimena. Ben is from the root to build, because the purpose of life is to build for the future, which is done through the children. So we have to build up a good life, a moral life. So when Hagar saw she was pregnant and Sarah not pregnant, she thought, well, now I'll be the main person here. And she treated Sarah with enormous disrespect. Therefore Sarah said, can't go on like this. So of course, Avraham, who at that time had no other progeny at all, and at that time, if you look in the order of the Parshas, he had also not yet been promised he's going to have another son. Therefore it said, Louis Ishmael, but let's say he was in hope that from this child maybe he'll be able to educate him the right way. And then shortly afterwards, then she was in a place without water, didn't know what to do, but then she found water, and an angel of Hashem spoke to her in the name of God and said, you just go back to your mistress, show her the proper respect, and then there's a there's a prophecy, you're going to have a son, and you should give the name Yishmael. Why? Because Hashem has heard your affliction. Because Sarah afflicted her a bit. To gave her Musa and other instructions, you can't show disrespect. And she pained her in different ways. She ran away. Said, go back, and you have to accept the fact you're still the maidservant. But your son is going to be born to you, you should give his name Ishmael. And then it says, don't think your son is going to be easy. He's going to be very wild, Pere Adam. And he's going to want to take over everything. Not just to take over whatever inheritance he'll have from Avraham, but he wants to inherit the world. And he'll oppose anyone who puts obstacles in the way. In the end, Yado Bakol V'Yad Kol Bo. All the others in the world will knock him down, will oppose him. So there's a lot of riddles here. This was given me before Ishmael was born. Hashem already gave him a name, which you don't find by any of the forefathers. And why was he given that name? It says, because Hashem has heard your iniquity, your suffering, and you turn to Hashem. He should help you. And the Ramban, which often followed him in his deeper comments, he says, Sora, our matriarch, she did something wrong when she afflicted her maidservant. Why did she? You could easily understand her. After all, she was the one who had persuaded her husband to go and have relations with Hagar to produce a child. She was the one. And she thought, very good, this is a way we can raise this child to some extent together, because she was a trusted maidservant. As soon as she's pregnant, she thinks she's the mistress of the house. So therefore she was upset, and she afflicted, or at least she hurt, the feelings of Hagar. She had to flee. So the Ramban says, we should know that because of this, Hashem said, Hashem has listened to your affliction. We say, as we follow this pattern all the way through, this has gone into the descendants, and because of this, which is an understandable weakness, a saintly person like Sarah, but for her, was considered a sin, and because of that sin, in the future, the people of Israel are going to suffer enormously, to the extent as it's described by Bilam, Oy, mi yichyeh misumo el. Who's going to live in the world? In other words, this Yishmael is going to threaten the extinction of the human race. That's what it says further in the Chumash. That's why it's called Yishmael. God listens to prayers. They'll pray to God. They pray to God that the people of Israel should disappear, and also other human beings should disappear. And his power is going to want to extend to the whole world. Now, when, in fact, the commentators say it took a couple of thousands of years till this was understood in part, because the whole Muslim movement, which is the name of the true God, and we started off to some extent with the acceptance of the Noachide Code and the belief in one God, which is inherent in the name Yishmael. And the prayers of Avraham was that through Yishmael Yechiel Fanecha, as we learned, that Avraham felt also he's going to be the one. And if he will live in front of Hashem and follow his teachings, he can be the inheritor. He will carry on these teachings of Avraham to follow the way of Hashem, to do justice and righteousness. He had that potential in him. and he's also going to pray to Hashem that he should be the one. And there'll become a time when he wants to rule over the world. So they say when Muhammad and the Muslim movement started, there were indications that although in the Quran there's also an acceptance of the mission of the Jewish people of the land of Israel, and there's no sort of indication in the Quran itself and in the early quotations from other sources of Muhammad that he was insisting on wanting to take over what we call the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, and rule in it. But the Zohar goes more deeply into the text and says, yes, there are hints. If you look carefully in the words of the Chumash, there are hints, Mas havot siman lebanim, that there's going to come a time when the Muslims will go much further, and they will want to make the land of Israel their center. And when is that? When the people of Israel are leaving Eretz Israel empty of dedication to Hashem. And that's what's happened. Because if that's how it's going to work. If the people of Israel will really fulfill their covenant with Hashem, then Ishmael will do teshuvah. As we find also in the next week's parsha, in the teshuvah. And he recognized that his brother Yitzchak was the right one to take over the land of Israel. And he would help him in this. But that's when he did teshuvah. But before that, there's going to come a time that he's going to want to rule the world. And there are such tendencies already coming out in the early days of Islam, but not in a way they've come out today. It's only today that we see the more fulfillment of these words in literal fashion, that even there's a threat as a result of the extreme dedication of the extremists. They'll do anything to conquer the world, every part of the world. Which even in the Middle Ages, when the Rambam also, he himself suffered, and he knew that others would have suffered from some of the sometimes extreme evil actions and murderous actions of the Muslims. And in fact he refers to when the 12 princes who were born to Ishmael, one of them is Kedar, and Kedar was also the tribe of the Bedouins to which Muhammad belonged. And there it says, Oili kigati meshach shulchanti olei kedar. When I had the neighbor, the Muslims, olei kedar, that's going to be a time of oy vavoy, of terrible suffering. And then it says, when it describes the names of the 12 sons, it says, Dumo, Bishma Umaso. 3 of the names teach us that the only way in which you can deal with the Muslims, that any promises they make, you can't rely upon them. It says, Ani Shalom, I, the people of Israel, we want peace with the Arab peoples, with the Muslims. But when I start discussing ways of establishing peace, they're only preparing themselves for stronger warfare, which is the constant situation today. Any break in the battles with Hamas, and certainly with Daesh and the others, whatever break we make in it, Hezbollah, all these things, Hezbollah is also the war of God against the people of Israel, and Hamas is the violence against Israel, and the Jihad is the dedicated war for the unity of God, as Jihad means, for the unity of God. But there they regard it today as unity against the people of Israel and also those who support them. So this is what we're faced with today on a worldwide basis. And even though if you look at the visions that are found, as we discussed in the previous year, of the four kingdoms. The last kingdom, the kingdom of Edom, according to most authorities, but Ibn Ezra, I think the last kingdom really refers to Ishmael, and even the others who interpret the vision of Daniel and the other prophets, that it refers to Edom, but there's a mention, even with Edom, he's going to have horns going out from him, and those horns want to fight against the enemy, is a reference to the power of Ishmael, which will absorb the power of Edom. And if we read more carefully the words of all the prophets, we see that before the Mashiach will come, there's going to be an attempt made by Ishmael to take over the land of Israel. And they've been given power. And we see also Hashem, in fact he says, if you want to understand the name Ishmael, grammatically there's a problem here. That when the name was given, Hagar was told by the Malach of Hashem, the angel of God, give his name Yishmael, which means God will hear. Why? Because God has heard your anguish. So his name should have been Shamael, God has heard your anguish. But what is mentioned here is a prophecy. Because of the way in which Hagar was treated by Zorah, which is an indication also sometimes we Jews have perhaps not treated the Arabs with the amount of chesed that we should have done. Because also sometimes we feel we're justified, and maybe we do a bit more than we're justified. Then Hashem will punish the people. It says in Tehillim, there's going to come a time when the enemies of the people of Israel will bring us to terrible troubles. And it says, Yishmael v'yaneim. Because Baruch Hu is going to listen to the prayers of our enemy and bring us to enormous suffering, to the people of Israel. And then the only way we can be redeemed from this, we'll have to pray stronger than our enemies to Hashem, reach a higher level, and then Hashem will redeem us. Then part of Shalom Nafshi, then Hashem will redeem us. So the passage in last week's parsha, which we already looked at a bit, which was before Ishmael was born, is followed in next week's parsha. You'll see that after Ishmael was born, and then he grew up, and meanwhile 13 years later then Yitzchak was born, and then it says, if you turn in the Chumash, that in chapter 21, verse 9, when Yitzchak was born, Ishmael was 30, so Sarah saw that he was playing dangerous games. She saw that he was being mitzachek. It means they grew up a bit more, and then he saw that here the older son, Ishmael, was playing with bows and arrows with Yitzchak. And what does it mean, mitzachek? Rashi says, he began to go in ways of the idolaters. As we find also when Am Yisrael sinned at the golden calf, v'yikum l'tzachek. Because once you start serving other gods, you feel you can dedicate your life to having fun and just to enjoy yourself. You're no longer under the rulership of the Creator. You do what you want. Another explanation, it even refers to Lashon Gil Arayot, to sexual immorality. Another explanation, it also, we find in the Tanakh, the word tzachik means to play at trying to kill one another, to have feuds that can lead to fatality, to a fatal end. So when Sarah saw this, she said, we can't have him in our household anymore, he's dangerous. So he said to Avram, drive her out. Ki lo yirash, don't think that the son of this maidservant can live together with my son Yitzchak, because not following the right path. This was, however, wrong in the eyes of Avraham, because it was his son, and he loved his son, and he thought he could educate him. And even was playing dangerous games, which seemed to even involve murderous games, he felt that he's going to train him to go in the right path. As he did earlier, or even early on, when Yitzchak wasn't born yet, he said, let Ishmael live in front of you, and perhaps you can train him, or it's got wildness in him, but maybe it can be controlled. To apply to the day, he's one of the Noshrim, he's gone the wrong direction, gone off the derech, as we say, but I'll try and bring him back. I must dedicate more time to him. But Sarah saw it's not going to work. She said, he can't be in a house. And may even be, if you drive him away, maybe that was in her mind as well. Sometimes that's the only way. Let him see what it's like to have no home. And maybe it will to some extent stop his wildness. And he'll recognize what he could have got from this household. So God said to Avraham, no, whatever Sarah tells her, listen to her, because your true continuity will be through Yitzchak. But don't think that there won't be a future for Ishmael. It's going to be a future. Why? Zarachahu, he is still your descendant. He still has in him elements that could develop for good. In other words, we might do teshuvah. So Avram, he sent into the desert. He had to fulfill the command of Hashem. There was no water left. So it says, she threw the child under one of the bushes. As Rav Hirsch points out here, a Jewish mother wouldn't do such a thing. There's no water left. What, she's going to throw the child in the bushes? Because she doesn't want to hear the child crying. Obviously keep the child in her bosom. And she thought the other way. She kept far away. She wanted to keep, I don't want to see the child dying, she said. You can die of thirst. I can't see that. But the mother wouldn't be with the child. And so it shows she was still Hagar, she was still a Ben Omar, she Hagar Mitzvahs. She had in her Egyptian qualities still. She was the daughter of Pharaoh, so I understand that. Anyway, she started crying because she was losing her wife. She was also losing her own life. She didn't want to see the death of the child. She started crying, also because she's going to die. Then it says, God listened to the way in which the boy was crying. Because really all this was to some extent her fault. She wasn't, she didn't sufficiently listen to the malachim that came to her before the birth. So now the angel of God came to Hagar and said, don't be afraid. So perhaps, the boy is still important, and God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. So therefore, first of all, lift him up. First thing, he said, the boy is not going to have his life saved unless you do your part, at least, and be like a mother. and have in your mind that this boy is going to have his life saved. And you've got to strengthen him. Because look, God said, I'm going to be a great nation. And then she saw the well of water. And then it says God was with the boy and he grew up. But the mother, what did she do? They dwelt in the desert, and she took for him a wife, the Egyptian wife. Near the oral tradition, there are many oral traditions what happened. Because Avraham heard all this, he knew it was a mistake to have Ishmael in the house with his mother to grow up. It won't work. And you can see the mother was still, she thought, well, I can't go back to the house of Avraham, so I better get him a wife from Egypt. Let the Egyptian corrupt culture, at least they'll have an environment. Avraham Avinu, he didn't give up, because he still said, he's still my son, and maybe something will come of him. So he made a point of visiting the place where Ishmael was in the desert. He went to visit him, and he found there Ishmael wasn't there, but the wife Ishmael was there, and she treated him like a stranger. Didn't want to know about him. Yeah? So he says he didn't even get off his donkey. He just visited. He just said he should give a message to Ishmael that he came to visit, and that he was expecting something else. I mean, the home of Avraham and Sarah was a home of extreme hospitality. It's told at the beginning of the Parsha. Hospitality, Achnus al-Orchim, is mentioned among those things that at the highest level of chesed. In one way it can do, it's much more than giving to charity. Giving to charity is give something to a person who needs, come to the door, give him some money or give him some food. But hospitality involved by Avraham Avinu, and until today also by great people who are hospitable, involves looking after them in every respect. So we find also in the contrast between Avraham Avinu's society and the society of Sodom and Amorah, where it's emphasized that we should all feel in this world like we are sitting as guests in the palace of Hashem. We are guests of Hashem in this world. I would say, a 100-star hotel. That's what we're given in all aspects of life. In fact, they say everything. There's the Prince of Hospitality mentioned in the Gemara. It says, whatever the Balabai tells you to do, you should do. It tells you to sit down, sit down. It tells you everyone should start. Let's start singing Midrash or sing Midrash. It says, let's hear Dvar Torah, say Dvar Torah. It says, now let's have the second course. Everyone should join in. The others should do what the Balabais wants. It's a good Oreach should do that. There's one thing you shouldn't do, it says. If the Rabbi says, please go out of my house, you should not go out. Kol ma she'balabait omer asay chutz mitzay. Do it, except for going out. Don't leave the place. Yeah? Because after all, he's got a duty to make you feel at home. So he's not fulfilling his duty. You stay on. So of course, depends on circumstances. May say in a nice way, it's if the Balabai says, look, it's become very late, and you should. The Balabai says, well, he'll probably say, we need to go to sleep, so he must excuse us. So don't stay on. But still, what's the true meaning? The true meaning, that's how it's explained by some of the commentators. The Shlomo says this. It's well known that there was a person who was a great Talmud Chacham called Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya. he learned Torah, both the hidden as well as the revealed. But he went too far and decided to leave the Torah, became a heretic. And he became a heretic, so of course he was no longer accepted with the other people. He could no longer be a teacher of Torah. Rabbi Meir, who was his disciple, very much tried to be makar of him. And he himself heard a heavenly voice which says, once you become a heretic, like you have come, then you no longer have a portion with Hashem. Kol ba'eo lo yeshuvun. All those who go with a great deal of knowledge and they become heretics, you can't get them back, Hashem says. Because you become lost. You think you know everything, but you've lost your belief in the truth of what you've learned. Very difficult to come back. And therefore, that's the pasuk. That's why even today, it's true. Today, nearly all people who are Jews, who are non-believers and non-observers, they're not really guilty. It's ignorance in everybody. But there are some exceptions in each generation of people who have learned a great deal. They've even got smicha from the highest authorities, and then they decide, not for me, for different reasons. They become heretics. They join some of them might become Christian missionaries, others will become complete atheists, and that's what has happened a few times to these people. They're very exceptional, but they sometimes cause much more harm than the hundreds and thousands of those who inside do have, at least have respect for the religion. They don't know much about it, and they say, for me it doesn't mean anything, but I've been educated. And really that's the halacha is today, like expounded especially with the Chazon Ish for our times. It was also my great-grandfather, Al-Khaneh, was a great posek, and he, in his time, this going back almost 200 years, 150 years. So in his time in Germany, there's also the same situation, that the vast majority of the people who didn't keep Torah, and some of them became baptized and so on, but they did it for social reasons. It's not that they were real heretics. So what happened? This heavenly voice came, so they say, whatever the Balabait of the world says to us who are guests in this world, even if he gives us a heavenly voice, we shall have nothing to do with him, don't take notice. If you have inside yourself a voice that says, get back, Hashem will listen to you. Don't you listen to the voice that wants to reject you. Just keep on trying, and you might find a time when Hashem will take you back as a one who's close to him. And that's what happened. Even people are shown, we'll call them a person, Shana or Pirish. She learned a lot, and then he left it all. I've known a few of them who, when they came to a certain time in their lives and they recognized they made a mistake, they come back again. So Ishmael also, he came back. Avraham Avinu never gave up. He came a later time when Ishmael, she took a better wife. He took a wife, not from Egypt, but took a wife from the family, from the same family, who also had in her an ounce of chesed. And that wife, she helped him. When Avraham came and Ishmael wasn't there, she gave him fantastic welcome and gave him food and drink and also for his animals, everything. And some say this midrash is really also a reference to what happened to Muhammad. if you read the Bible of Muhammad, he had a non-Jewish wife and then a Jewish wife. That's why he had also this ambivalence in his episodes in his life. Sometimes he was very much against the Jews. Because what happened? First he wanted to become a proselyte. His first teachings of religion, when he had the revelations, he claims he had revelations from God, who told him he must go away from idolatry, like the Bedouins were idolaters in his time, and must go back to believe in him. So where did he find out about belief in God? He says, you'll find it. Go and find out from the Jews. The Jews have the Bible. So he found a Jew to teach him the Bible. After I lived in a time when the Bible had become known already for hundreds of years in other languages. So he had a teacher, and when the teacher saw that he had claims to have had personal revelations which were considering himself a prophet already, he thought we can't give him a real Geirut, and he left him. So then he went to a Christian teacher, and the Christian teacher was also a bit anti-Semitic, and that accounts for the ambivalence he has in his writings, pro-Jewish and some anti-Jewish, and so it's carried on until today. And the pro-Jewish version is really the one which was adopted by the great medieval saints and scholars from Islam. But some of the political rulers, some of them were friendly and some of them were enemies. So, and the Rambam himself, to own life, he had to flee from different places, from places where the Muslims were involved. But near the end of his life, he found great support amongst the Egyptian Muslims, and the Sultan himself took him as his main doctor. So things have changed. Today also, some of the moderate Muslims are very close to very pro-Jewish. And for example, in Morocco, there have been periods, also more recent times, when the heads of the Moroccans, the Muslim heads, have been positive towards the Jews. In other countries, they've been our enemies. And we have to work hard in our time to strengthen the moderate aspect. So, in this week's Parsha, this is what we find, that in the end, it says that when they came to bury Avraham Avinu, to describe the end of Parashat Chayesoro, Vayikru oto Yitzchak v'Yishmael banav. In other words, Ishmael, he came to the burial of Avraham Avinu, and he gave priority to Yitzchak. Recognized Yitzchak was the true descendant, the full descendant of Avraham, and he said from here we learn out that in the end he did teshuvah, and in the end he will do teshuvah. So this applies very much to our time also. We have to bond together with the moderates amongst the Muslim world as much as possible. There's a person called Sheikh Palazzi, who is the head of Islam in Italy. He's a professor of Islam University. He's the head of the Muslim community, and he in constant favor of the fact that Israel, the land of Israel, should be for the Jews, and we have to live in peace one with the other. But we have to fulfill, if you really want to strengthen this, we have to fulfill what it says in the Chumash, to not think that, as it says in the Chumash frequently, that we are given the land of Israel and we think that Kochi v'otzem yadi asa li et hachayil hazeh. The fact we've been successful in our time, that is because of our strength and our power that have produced this success. It says in the Chumash, says in the prophets constantly, do not think that the land is ours because of our strength. It's because of what Hashem has promised the forefathers and their saintliness. We have to follow in the ways of the forefathers, to worship Hashem in holiness. Then we will see Hashem will respond by transforming our enemies into our friends. That's what we hope will happen in our time. And this is also reflected in the parshas of the week. Masavot Siman Banim. That ultimately Hashem will listen, and I'll give you here, actually it says explicitly in the words of the Zohar, what we see happening today. That says that the name Ishmael says that there will be many great evils done to the people of Israel. And they will not allow us to follow our ways, and there's no such difficult exile and persecution as is found by the Galut of Ishmael. And that's why Bilam says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave a name to Ishmael similar to the name of Yisrael, because the ending El means God. It specifically means the quality of chesed of God. He said, Oi, woe, who's going to live in his days? Mi yichyeh misuma el, that's the Samael, the power of evil against the people of Israel, that might be dangerous to all mankind. And then it says in Piket Rabbi Eliezer, why is his name given Ishmael? In future, Atid Lishmoa HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'en kat ha'am ma she'atim b'nei Ishmael la'asot ba'aretz b'archit ha'yamim. What the people of Ishmael will do in the land of Israel in the end of days, that's why it's called Ishmael. But we hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will listen to the voice of Am Yisrael when we suffer. So therefore, we also say to Tehillim, B'Shem Hashem ki amilam. When the enemies surround Am Yisrael, it says, in the name of Hashem, we will cut them off. B'Shem Hashem means, first of all, they use the name of Hashem to destroy us. They pray to Hashem before they want to destroy us, before they actually attack us. How can we best be saved from that? If we as a nation also call upon the name of Hashem. The name of Hashem means tefillah, to pray to Him. The name of Hashem also means the Torah, which is the revelation of the name of Hashem, to learn it. B'Shem Hashem means also to do chesed, do loving kindness. So if we become strong in all these, then, on the contrary, we'll be saved, and Ishmael will do teshuvah. Amen. So, if you have any questions, please bring them at the beginning of next year.